Hello, my name's Jackie Saunders of Back to My Roots. My brothers and sisters, what could it be that bothers you? Tell me what it is that fulfills you, for I am happy to sink with you when you are hurt, proud to rise with you when you overcome, for I am, because you are, and together we are as one.
My name is Tabassum Jamil. I'm a community development worker working with the NHS South Birmingham, based at Midland Heart, and I will run you through this DVD documentary on early diversion of BME from the criminal justice and mental health systems. The program started in March 2008 with a community-based social study conducted by Patrick Quasija on behalf of Midland Heart NHS South Birmingham Community Development Team with various recommendations. The study came out with the following recommendations. The community should seek help and support at the earliest opportunity on matters such as general health, mental health, substance misuse, as these often impact on judgment and mental health, leading at times to offending and crime vulnerability and target to offenders and crime perpetrators. There are places to go for help such as the general practitioner, counselling services, drug and alcohol support teams and community development work. Commissioning teams should continue to commission services that meet and respond to needs of BME communities upon impact and needs assessments. Such services include counselling, community social groups and enterprises, education, learning and training agencies, advocacy teams including independent mental health advocates, art, music, dance, drama and youth groups. These groups act as peer support and learning forums. Statutory and voluntary organizations such as mental health, criminal and justice agencies, employment teams, connections and education should be culturally competent to serve of the culturally and racially different. The competency related to language and interpretations, people who reason and think in more than one language, people who may be restrained by values to say and be addressed in a certain style. However, this also requires the community to appreciate the universal of certain values and principles. The community should be encouraged to determine individual wellness and recovery plan from which any support mechanism should be built. This is a recovery plan that describes when one is well, how he can maintain that wellness, what are the warning signs that things are about to get worse, when does the person break down, what is he like in a crisis and how he can get out of the crisis and get well again. This also involves social belief dynamics of the individual. The criminal and justice system and the polity system should not racialize crime like gun crime if crime has to be fought. However, in tackling crime, the system should identify the dynamics at play for different communities geographically, culturally, education and employment status, ethnic compositions and services development. Stay tuned for how these recommendations were utilized.
Sometimes I'm glad of being me. Sometimes I'm glad with compassion. Sometimes I get glad with mad. That's why they call me glad made mad. That's why they call me glad made mad. Would you believe me if I told you we care? Share our problems with each other. Would you dare if we put our hearts together and raise our heads so high?
The major findings and recommendations of the study were integrated with true stories from the community to inform the writing of a real drama piece, Glad Made Mad, written by Patrick Quasija, with music partly by Jacqueline Letty, acted by Back to My Roots Community Group and West Midlands Community Development Workers.
All right. The community members have come together to exercise their passion about the given subject. The story is about a young boy called Ngoma. He's of African descent who has completely disengaged from any form of education in the English language because it confuses him. He commits a crime due to his lack of knowledge of what constitutes a crime in this country and suffers with a breakdown in prison. What will become of him and his family? Let's see, and welcome on the stage.
Then hell broke loose and the uninvited guests arrived.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to my 21st and engagement to my fiancée.
Where's that African queen?
There you go again. No interference, otherwise you'll be dead meat.
Oh.
Now I hand over to DJ Khaled.
Turn this music off now.
He does in a private party.
Guys, this is the thing. My name is PC Dover. And I advise you to stop this noise now. Remember, it's past midnight and you're disrupting your neighbours, right?
Wrong! This is a party, it is not noise. This is my home, so get her on with dead meat.
Dead meat? Dead meat? PC Exeter, come and join me. Gentlemen, I will arrest you. Use the necessary force in accordance with the law.
So, this is my new home now. This is what I have to face. My life. My mother is down with depression. My fiance is in a mental hospital. My parents are separated because I am here. Oh God. What can I do to come out here or forget all this? Goma, is this you, another person? Goma, are you in a dream? Goma, is this your body really? Get a knife and cut this body. If blood oozes, then it's you. There is no knife here. Clever these people are. Eh? Goma, are you alive? Are you dead? Is this your home? I think so. Is it? No? Yes? No? I have an idea. A brilliant idea. My freedom, I cannot have. My children are not mine. They are both of my slave owners. But one thing my captors cannot take from me is my freedom to die! Yeah. This was a story of a slave woman. She could not have any children. I have decided to do likewise. Commit suicide. But before I die, in honor of my mother who brought me up on saying prayers, I will sing my last song and dedicate my soul to God. Oh God, receive me in peace, for I have not had in this world. Where's my medication?
He formed my heart before even time began. My life was in His hand. He knows my name. He knows my every thought. And He sees each tear that falls, and hears me when I call.
Then the prosecution and defense attorneys had a battle in the box, and the learned judge delivered her judgment.
Yes, my lord. Prosecution believes that Mr. Ngoma is a heartless young man in the community, and he is an adult who takes responsibility and he knows what he does. He is a bad example to these young people. He has consistently been a nuisance who has ignored warnings and legal orders. He admits to holding a party and making noise in the neighbourhood and breaching his ASBO in contravention of the common law pertaining to peace. He threatens violence and death to a police officer on duty in breach of the Public Order Act 1986 under Section 3 that relates to affray in British law. I believe that you don't have to wait for a threat to take place in order to prove it. Actions, after all, come from words. Your Lordship, there are bad people in this world, and when bad people decide to do bad things, they do them badly. Ngoma Tribute is one such bad person. I conclude that in order to curb unwanted behaviour in society, to instill discipline and good citizenship to the public, such behaviour as the defendants should be given the maximum punishment. That is it, my lord. Thank you. Mr. Baduno?
My client pleads not guilty to the charges brought against him. Your worship should pass judgment on the merits of the witnesses
and circumstances in this question. The charge that Mr. Ngoma threatened violence and death to a police officer cast out to merit. The only merit in that charge is that the officer was on duty. But the defendant didn't hold the offence physical or tangible and tried to hurt the officer. Your worship, words are not real, otherwise beggars would rise. I also contend that people can either be soft, spoken or loud. As for the family of Ngoma, they are loud and irritable people. On the antisocial behavioural and non-compliance to the warnings by the local authority and the police, and holding of noisy functions at night, getting drunk, this impacting on the neighbourhood, which can be classified as public disorder. Yes, this is against the law. But the defendant has told us, this honourable court, that he does not read due to language potential touch, flash or shock. The defence is aware of ignorance or law is no defence. But for judgment to ignore the circumstances of the defendant who is not appropriately interrogated in society is the proverbial choosing to bury a dead person's body and leaving their body parts out. If judgment cannot see this, then present reality and history and the public court may. My conclusion is, if laws have to be made, they have to be made and understood. My Lord, it is my submission that you dismiss these charges. With that, I rest my case.
Okay. Indeed, people are born different. The defence tactfully demonstrated this through the public witness with Bona's father and Ngoma's father. And this could also be a way of expression rather than actual intent. That information and terminologies are thrown to the public with a view or not, that they will read between the lines or open the envelopes or read the writing on the wall. Unfortunately, it's not often the case. Appropriate good citizenship has not been promoted for people's integration. These concerns of the defence make good recommendations for the government. Then, do the arguments of the defence exonerate wrongdoers? And also, has the prosecution convinced me to convict the defendant? Mr. Ngoma Tribute. Ngoma Tribute. I pronounce you not guilty.
We have seen and heard Ngoma's journey. This journey comes with consequences to the individual, family, community, professionals in the criminal justice and mental health systems. We approach a cross-section of people and professionals to get their views, lessons and concerns.
I'll touch on that just briefly. There's one for every single command unit. I'm one for Kings Heath, Kings Norton, and headquarters departments will also have a diversity champion. And my role within that is to coordinate the service delivery and the staff training aspect, if you like, and staff input regarding diversity. So it's both inward, there is a slide somewhere that says inward and outward facing, and that's exactly what it is. It's not just about because I see that there's two sides to this. There's the community side, you coming to us and you telling us, but if our officers don't understand what diversity is, what it means to them, what it means to you, then that's not going to mean that they're going to provide a great, it might mean they might not provide a great service because they don't understand. And obviously the first play that we saw, you know, that was the crux of it basically, the police didn't understand the different culture. Right, we've got 7 strands of diversity and they are, hopefully you can see, I didn't know exactly what font to do it in, but it's race, religion stroke belief, gender and transgender, disability, sexual orientation and age. And as was pointed out from the role of diversity champion, it's to make sure that all of those angles are covered from the police point of view. So it's to make sure each year, it says at the bottom there, I'll cut to that one, we come up with a diversity action plan, which we've just, at Kings Heath, we've just completed ours, if you like, for this coming year. And again, that's both inward and outward facing, so it's about training our officers to better understand what diversity is, what is available to them to better perform their role. And it's also about outward facing, where we want a SPOC, as we call it, specific point of contact, for religious establishments, for schools, colleges, so that really at the drop of a hat we could say, who do we need to speak to regarding this? And then we'd have someone on hand. Yes, this man or this lady is involved in that religious establishment, you want something from them, or you want to tell them a message, this is where you go. We're just trying to make that communication aspect much more fluid. The second bullet point there is that obviously I'm the diversity champion, and then under each strand there will also be a lead, so there'll be someone that maybe fits within that area, maybe not, but they need to have an interest in it, obviously, because they're the people who are going to go out there and hopefully fight for the right, if you like, if that's the right term. But as I said, it's inward and outward facing, so it's not just about looking after people from BME background or elderly people or disabled people. It's also making sure our staff are fit for purpose when they go out on the streets. The 2008-2011 strategic policing plan, a bit of a mouthful again, I won't bore you with that, but within it includes issues around tackling vulnerability and improving trust and confidence. I've got 3 minutes. Oh, 5, thanks very much. No pressure. Within that, very quickly then, the strategic plan, some of the points under that are about engaging communities, delivering citizen-focused service, improve confidence and harmony within communities, address service satisfaction gaps, and address needs of new communities. They're all things that are mandated in that document, and that's come from the Chief Constable. So again, it all feeds downhill, and then that becomes a task for people at lower levels, if you like, to make it happen, or to do it, but the people at higher levels sort of make it happen, if you like, give us the resources. We do a number of different things, and the form here is a version of it, but it's not quite the same. But we have a performance indicator about how confident you, as a member of the community, are in the local police. This is a quarterly, it comes out every quarter, and we speak to 250 people per command unit, so over the years about 21,000 people. Conducted by an external company, and they will come and speak to you, knock your front door and say, I just want to ask you a few questions about the police. And the year-to-date figures, if you like, it's a rolling 12-month, so year-to-date, the target is 75%. For BME, we're 79.1, where you believe, if you fit in that criteria, that you believe the police are doing a good job in your area. So we're exceeding the target, but obviously with the target, with 100% being the max, we're still a fair way off. And then the other one is about contact counts, where satisfaction with overall service. So if you've had an involvement with West Midlands Police in a certain area, as within a certain crime type, then there's a possibility someone will call you within 6 or 12 weeks of that incident to ask you a number of questions about how you feel you were treated by the police, whether you were kept informed, whether they were courteous, whether they did a good job, etc., etc. And as you'll see there, I'm not here to say West Midlands Police have got it sealed, because we haven't. We're not quite achieving the target for the BME community. So there's work to be done there, and then that sort of data feeds down to the diversity champions, and that will be something that I'll be looking at for Kings Heath, depending on an hour, because these are Birmingham figures, so the 9 command units in Birmingham, these are the figures combined. So some will be doing better, some will obviously be doing worse, as it's an average. So one of the roles as diversity champion would be to look at what we're not doing very well with the BME community and look to improve it. Right, this is the final slide. A number of different things. It's fair to say there's lots and lots more going on across the force than what's just on there. There may be things that you're involved in that I'm not aware of, because I'm just a pawn in the whole game that works up at Kings Norton. So there's officers all over doing neighbourhood policing, who are linking in with the community and doing a number of different projects, as I say, and hopefully you're involved, and if you're not and you want to be, then as I say, give me your details and I'll pass those on. We've got the key individual network database, which we've got a central one, and one per each command unit. And that's a number of people who are key figures in the community. It could, you can put whatever definition you like on that. You could be someone that runs a youth group, you could be someone from a place of worship, you could be anybody, you could be just someone with some influence in the area. And we look to highlight who they are, and obviously then if we've got a message that we want to give, or we've got some information that we want to receive, we speak to our kins and we say, what's happening? Can you let us know how the tensions are, or we've got this message we want to give, can you pass it on for us? There's IAG, which stands for Independent Advisory Group. This is a pilot at the moment. It's happening on my command units at King's Heath. There's one in Solihull, there's one in Wolverhampton. And this is about a group of people, 15 or so, who come under different strands of diversity, if you like. It needs to be representative of the area. And we look at, ask you really, what do you think West Midlands Police could do better? Are we doing well enough in this, or are we not? And we look to get feedback from certain members of the community. Moving on quickly, there's 2 community radio stations. The Youth Forum, that's spread across the force. There are a number of different command units, and it's a lot of police. Well, it's police-led, but it's work with members and youths, obviously, as it says in the title, to look to divert people away from the criminal justice system. And give them some education as well. I know that some of the team from the DCCU took some people down to Park Lane, just the other end of this road, and took to the firearms unit, and they showed them back guns, and they showed them some DVDs to show people what would happen or what will happen if the police are caught a firearms incident, and also showed them the dangers of firearms as well for those that might not be aware. There are 2 community radio stations. There's one that I'm involved in up in near the Maypole in Druids Heath, for those of you that might know it, South Birmingham Community Radio. And then there's one down in Spark Hill, Unity FM, which I know the police have a slot in on a Monday evening, 6 till 7.
Sometimes I'm glad of being me. Sometimes I'm glad with compassion. Sometimes I get glad with mad.
Systems. Okay. So Paul, you've seen a young man traveling a social journey from one about to enter family life, but ends up entering the criminal justice system and mental health systems. Some people have asked, was it an accident? Or for that matter, what is the clinical pathway for diagnosis and treatment of someone suspected of suffering mental ill health? And what advice can you give the community on how best to prevent entering into the mental health system?
Very wide-ranging questions and very important questions. The most important thing is that we need to get away from a position of having a battle between the races, battle between professionals and families, lay people. We need to work together, because psychosis is a big problem, and we know that a large proportion of young black men who are getting into mental health services are getting in through very violent avenues, entry points like the criminal justice system. So the pathway is a difficult one. The pathway is often through the first pathway, the easiest and the best pathway probably, is through general practice. Now, general practitioners are reasonably good at diagnosing psychosis, and it varies according to various different factors how easily people are diagnosed. We often have a sense that something has gone wrong, something is not quite as it should be, someone is not responding as we'd expect them to respond, something has changed in their life circumstances. So we are suspicious and we kind of ask questions. We try to, as GPs, try to engage with the person and, as importantly, engage with their family. There are a number of impediments to that. If you can't engage with the family, it's very difficult. I've seen young men who I think are psychotic, who I've tried to get help, tried to engage with them, but their degree of suspicion and paranoia mean that they can't sit and talk to me. They can't, if I start asking questions, they don't like it, get up and walk out. Try and discuss with their family not interested in talking to me. They perceive me as someone who doesn't understand the culture, doesn't understand the background, and about to make a diagnosis of or label someone inappropriately. Equally well, there are within the Asian community, for example, situations where families will collude, GPs may collude to minimise symptoms deliberately, because they're worried about stigma, they're worried about the impact. I guess there's an assumption that when you are diagnosed with a mental illness, you're going to get vast doses of antipsychotics, you're going to end up in a dangerous and violent environment. Because that's how people have seen it happen in other people, they assume that that's what's always going to be the case. Now, what we try to do as GPs, and we have a lot of training in this sort of thing, is to start from the premise that if you treat gently and if you treat subtly, then you can actually turn things around. All right. So if I see someone say who I know is smoking cannabis and is demonstrating signs of paranoia, and they're a young black man, and then perhaps a family history of schizophrenia, I'm going to be suspicious, and I'm going to try and engage with them to talk to them about what is likely to be going on. And that's difficult because they're going to assume that I'm wanting to tell them they're mad, they're crazy, and often people will say, "What are you saying? What are you saying to me?" I'm like, I'm not mad, I'm not crazy. And I can see in their eyes fear about the diagnosis, fear about what to say to their community, how will they be accepted. What we try to do, we've got very good early intervention teams in this city, and their primary aim is to help people to minimise the impact of a mental illness. Their aim is not to label people unnecessarily or to drag people down. Their aim is to reduce the duration of untreated psychosis. Now, what happens in young black men often is that they have a very long duration of untreated psychosis because there is poor engagement with services for a variety of reasons, and it's lots of people's fault. It's a collective responsibility. And therefore, when they do present, they often present in a very florid way. It comes out in bad ways that are misinterpreted. Sometimes they're treated aggressively. They're treated in an insensitive way, like our young man in this story. And this is the problem. So then when a police officer sees another young black man behaving in a certain way, he might jump to a conclusion, and he might act upon that in an unnecessarily strong way, aggressive way. And that's a historical thing. By the same token, the family of a young man who is struggling may not come forward to a GP and say, "Look, we know you, we've been patients of this practice for 10, 15 years, we're worried about our son, can you help us?" What may happen is they stand back, they don't get involved, they're fearful of actually acknowledging that there may be a problem, or they feel that the problem is a spiritual one possibly, or it's something else to do with other problems, which, we are physical, psychological, spiritual beings. And I think too much we get into wars over what the problem is. Is it one or is it another? Why can't it be a lot of things causing a problem? You get someone whose father came over from West Indies in the 50s, say, a young man growing up now. His identity is confused, maybe. His sense of what am I? Am I black British? Am I black West Indian? Am I, who do I belong to? Who are my community? It's difficult. We've got emerging multiculturalism here, and it's not easy. And there's issues to do with education, deprivation, opportunity. We know all those kind of things, and those things are things that need to be acted upon. But the families and the communities of young black people need to be confident enough to come forward and say to the first line services, which is often primary care, general practice, look, we're going to trust in our interaction with you, trust in our relationship with you, and we're going to trust that you are acting in this person's best interests. Because that's what I feel that we're trying to do.
But I'm going to invite Lilith Grant, who is a senior lecturer and practitioner in integrative counselling and psychotherapy. And she's going to share with us the practitioner's point of view on how those at risk of entering the criminal justice system can be supported through counselling and psychotherapy.
I'm Lilith, and before I say anything else, I just want to thank the cast of this morning and this afternoon for the wonderful performances. I'm here really to talk about issues in relation to how we can be supported through counselling and psychotherapy. The matter that we are addressing today concerns individuals from families. The impact goes way beyond immediate individual experience to to family, community, and transnational contacts. So historically then, counseling and psychotherapy relates primarily to a young theoretical discipline coming out of psychology. These and others played their part in the developing discipline of Western talking therapies. But talk as therapy existed as long as human existence. The urbanization and secularization of Western societies necessitated its rapid development, and in response to human need and distress, we have the kind of job that I do. Migration from rural areas into cities required a different response. There are now over 500 different approaches to therapeutic intervention. And Hall would claim to be helping in relationships and facilitating help and support, helping people to move from a medical model, you need to hear that one, helping people to move from a medical model more to a humanistic, value-based model. And the other one is developing a focus in practice for helping to facilitate well-being as opposed to sickness and pathology. In its early years, counseling and psychotherapy practice was not easily accepted into the mainstream of medicine. It developed gradually through analytical approaches. Only people who could afford to pay received therapy, and from its onset, it was predominantly therapy for the individual. That is important too. An interesting feature in the development of therapeutic approaches was its use to control middle-class young women who appeared to be rebelling against parental control and authority. The working class, the underclass, and the mentally ill were imprisoned or locked in asylum. The impact of structural changes, i.e. the clearing of slums and the reducing of infectious disease, the impact of 2 world wars, the creation of the National Health Service, the rise of Marxism and socialism, and the decline of imperialism and colonialism, and improved transport and migration have affected. These have all impacted on the growing discipline of counseling and psychotherapy. So basically, the discipline as it was known had no intention ever to relate to the needs of Black or people of minority ethnic background. Counseling and psychotherapy is presently in a state of rapid change. Self-regulation is giving way to governmental professional regulation. Counseling, psychotherapy, and the individual. Developments in counseling and psychotherapy tends to mirror the structural context in which it is developed and practiced. Therefore, what you have, which I can't explain in detail, but it is basically this society seeing every other society as primitive. And so it's the primitive versus the modern. And that has a big meaning. It is the individual versus the collective. In this society, to emerge as an individual is the epitome of becoming. So you become because you can emerge and function totally separately from your family, your community, etc. He said there was no community, just the individual. That is the pinnacle of individuation, and it is competitive. So those of us who come from a collective background, who have to think of the group, think of the community, that is slightly primitive too. Materialism versus spiritualism. Okay? So materialism, again, is at the pinnacle, but spiritualism, comes next or further down, or unless it's new wave. Rationalism versus emotionalism. And this is the key area where, in terms of mental health issues, we have difficulty. Because you need to know the society you're in, and you need to know how emotions play a part. If you can be like the way I'm being now, and be very correct, and not show your feelings, you stand a better chance to function. But the moment you start showing your feelings, you're in jeopardy. Competitiveness versus cooperation. Yes? So competition is more important. And therefore, when you're looking for equality, that is a kind of hard to get thing. The word I would use is nebulous. You can't put your finger on it. Structure versus spontaneity, i.e. structure. No spontaneity, no off the cuff, no anything that is, just kicking and no. It's got to be structured, right? All of those. Now, if you can't function like that, and bearing in mind, you have to function in both societies, the community which you belong and the wider society. If you can't function in it, then you're going to have problems. And this is where a lot of the time we're having difficulty because people are labeling us as not functioning well. Now, coming on to another factor, which is called the social capital. Okay? Social capital is a kind of social science concept that started out in business and economics and all that. But then it began to be used in a sociological way to say that every society has capital. There's something that we have that if we know how it works, it's important. But the thing is, this capital, which is the currency that we have in this society, is not viewed as legitimate capital. So our capital cannot get on stream. It is the capital of the wider society that is the legitimate capital. So we need to look at how we ourselves can use our capital and use it effectively. It says, do black and minority ethnic people have legitimate social capital? The answer is no, according to the society. In relation to the wider society, it says we have ethnic capital that only can be understood in a problematized way. And ethnic capital may not be deemed to be effective. So people may not want to learn our ways of knowing because it may not be deemed to be effective capital. Now listen, therapists may feel that ethnic social capital is hard to learn and it is not valuable. What therapists need to offer is tried and tested therapies, tested on real white people. If trained ethnic minority therapists admit to using ethnic therapeutic ideas, then they will be asked, where is the theoretical underpinning? How will it be evaluated? Can you see where I'm coming from? Okay. Here the argument is that the structural, political, and the social position of the therapist can be so removed from that of the black and minority ethnic community or client that very little or real communication takes place. Okay? These therapies can be used to treat black people, but not in an unmodified way. They have to be mediated by culture, values, beliefs, and all ways of knowing. These therapies, black or white, and remember, because we are all trained the same way, black and white, we are no better. These therapists, black or white, who are trained in these approaches require further knowledge and understanding as to how to work appropriately with black minority ethnic peoples. They need to know about the dynamics of racism, classism, sexism, ageism, oppression, and how these oppression intersect together. For research, the evidence will be an example. I can't do it, but in South Africa, for example, we have evidence of how they're looking at some of these existing therapies and are using them more effectively in relating to the needs of black South Africans. In the Caribbean, in Jamaica, at the University of the West Indies, we have a number of developing therapeutic approaches which we can offer to you. There are not many of us, but people like me who have attempted to do this can actually offer you this therapy. And the one developed in Jamaica is called psychohistography. Okay? It's a bit of a mouthful, but by and large, it enables people to work in group, either in prison, in psychiatric setting, or in the community, to work in groups in order to prevent people developing multiple risks or being at risk of coming into the criminal justice system.
So Mpume, you have seen how a young man has gone through the criminal justice system and mental health services. How can a rap divert such a scenario in the communities?
Okay, RAP stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan. It is a program that was developed in secondary care mental health care services, and it stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan, as I've said. In a community setting, instead of talking about recovery per se, we talk about resilience. What are the things that people need to do as part of the program in order for them to be resilient? And this is one of the publications that has come as a result of that work. RAP itself is built on 5 key principles. It's a principle of hope, self-responsibility, self-assertion, information and education, and the support people have. And when they're going through a program of that nature, we help them to unpack what each of those 5 key principles represents for them in their lives and as a strategy for becoming well. That's the first part of it. The second part of the RAP approach is that it has 8 steps. It is an action plan for recovering wellness. And what we're doing in that instance is we're going through the 8 steps of RAP to come up with a plan for saying, this is what wellness looks like for me. These are the things that I need to do in order to become well or to stay well. These are the things that upset me and affect my sense of wellness. When we've walked people through that process, whether they're in the community or they're in any setting, they're able to determine and define what wellness looks like for them. It is a program that we're suggesting is used for resilience. It is a program that we're saying people can adopt and use without a breakdown. You don't need to have had a breakdown in order to recover, but that redefine what it means for each individual. People are welcome to look at our website, www.communitieswellness.com. We'll give information about work that we have done with various ethnic groups in different settings, including prisons and acute mental health institutions, as well as working with people in their communities around what recovering wellness might mean for them.
I'm just going to give you a little bit of background to our next speaker. This is Dr. Derek Campbell, and he is a Home Office advisor on gun crime. So Dr. Derek Campbell is a Home Office advisor on gun crime. He's going to talk to you about how to support those who are BME who may be at risk of finding themselves in gangs and knife and gun-related crime. He's the Chief Executive of Race Equality Sandwell, working with communities who are targeted with discrimination. He's worked in the public and private and voluntary sector alike, and will give an overview of the types of support that can be offered to those who may find themselves becoming involved in that kind of negative activity. So I give the floor to Dr. Campbell.
I was asked the other day, has racism got better? And it made me think about the answer, and discrimination and people treating people different. It made me think very hard about the answer. And I just remembered a story that was told to me some time ago about near the time of apartheid, where a bus driver was still separating the blacks from the whites on the bus. And it was a day when the inspector was coming in to observe the progress of breaking down apartheid. And as he went on the bus, he heard the bus driver saying, blacks at the back, whites at the front. And he went to the bus driver and said, no, you can't do that. You know, we're in a time of enlightenment where we have to think more about inclusivity, and we mustn't segregate people based on their colour like we did before. So he said, you have to come up with a different way of treating people to comply with a new way forward. So the bus driver thought about that, and the following day the inspector said, I'm going to come to observe and see how you've progressed. So the following day the inspector came and he said, what's your plan? He said, well, I've decided that I'm going to just pick a neutral colour and everybody will be that colour. And the driver says, well, what colour are you going to pick? He says, green. So everybody now is going to be green. The inspector said, well, I can live with that. So the following day the inspector came and he stood at the back and he observed what the bus driver was doing, and the bus driver says, dark greens at the back and light greens at the front. And that kind of made me think about the form of discrimination and how people see things. You like that one? Why do young people join gangs? Among the most common reasons are they want to belong to something. They want to receive protection, they want to earn money, they want to end the boredom and seek some kind of excitement. They want to be with friends and be more popular. And for some, it's even a family tradition. What do we see about gang culture? Well, young men particularly were thought to be attracted to gangs for a number of reasons, including pressure from their peers, the desire for money, respect and pride, the wish to be more successful. They wanted to be more attractive to women. A lot of people join gangs. Once in a gang, there are three main activities of gangs which we call the 3 R's. Respect, so they join gang because they want respect. Some of the activities is to generate revenue, and some to carry out revenge, reprisals. Interwoven or intervention models that we've used to try and address some of these issues. You see, what we've tried to do is get into the psyche of the young people. Why do they think being in this lifestyle is so attractive? Because if we can understand that, we can have the proper intervention strategies to stop them. We can learn how to sour the milk. Does that make sense? All right. So we have a number of intervention models. The whole of young model of intervention remains a focus of tactical intervention for gangs. Gun, knife prevention and strength of the various partnerships that allowed complementary enforcement, offender management, preventative and diversionary activities to take place at all 3 levels. So we have 3 levels. At the top we have OCG, organised crime gangs. In the middle we have street gangs, and at the bottom we have peer groups. Just because you see a group of young people gathering together doesn't mean they're in a gang. And I'll say this now, I have absolutely no problem with gangs. In fact, we've always had gangs. The problem we have is, what do they do? So we're not anti-gang, we're anti-criminal behaviour. If we look at the organised crime group, which is the top one, we see a number of key factors there. We look at a MAPA, a multiple offender public partnership arrangement, where we have groups of organisations who work collectively together to try and have intervention strategies to work with young people who are on, who are particularly in the organised crime, where there's a clear hierarchy, a clear structure. They plan their activity, they're sophisticated, they know exactly what they're doing, they're organised. We look at conflict resolution to try and stop these young people getting in there. We look at weekly gang surgeries, particularly in the prisons. So we go into the prisons and we work with young people, and we have weekly surgeries to try and work with these young people. And we offer support to help them exit that lifestyle. We have a coordinated, a consistent enforcement of gang members and a multi-agency gang unit. So that's what we do for that level of gang. It's organised, and these organisations going to work with these young people. The street gang is a shared priority forum, and we look at lifestyle management. One of the challenges we have, how do you convince young people who can make £1,000 a week by pushing drugs or enforcement to go to college, go to university maybe, or get a trade and probably earn £250 a week? And all the stress and strain of working for somebody who might not be the way that they like. It's a very difficult challenge. So we try to encourage them to look at a different lifestyle. And we have a coordinated approach. Visible police patrols to try and protect the streets, safe estates, gang callings, multi-agency gang units, wraparound services, intensive intervention programs, and we look at young men at risk, particularly when it comes to housing. Where do we put our young people to keep them safe? How do we help them build a lifestyle around that themselves that is conducive for them? How do we protect their family? Because what you need to perhaps be aware of, it's not just a gang member who then becomes a target, it's also their family who can become a target for opposing gangs. Peer groups, we look at the street influence. So we work in schools, what's going to influence young people. LEAP training, and we put that in schools. 3 schools we have preschool training, so we look at how young people operate within schools and try and divert them away from getting into gangs, etc. We have a number of mentoring schemes, and we go into schools to try and advise these young people. Further solutions. The team are involved in active offender management of offenders across Pan Birmingham, offender management arrangements through the MAPA and a strategic partnership. They are all engaged with coordinating mainstream provision in their core organisation. So we look at the police, the local authority, the youth offending team, the local education authority, and we look and probation, etc. And we look at how they can bend their mainstream funding and resources to address the issues that's been highlighted. This is a very controversial point. I've raised this, and we are doing battle at the moment. CRBs. If somebody's got a criminal record, they've served a number of years in prison, I've advocated and still advocate that we should expunge their record once they've served their time for certain crimes. If they're murderers or sex offenders, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about lower-level crime, particularly where young people have got records. They've probably served a couple of years in prison. Once they've done their prison term, why are we giving them a continual life sentence on their CRBs? As soon as they get a CRB check, it's all over. So if we really mean business, we have to think outside the box and be a bit more radical. But that's Derek Campbell speaking. So, yeah. Finally, we do listen to young people. I believe the right person should get the job if they've got the right skills. I also believe that young people do have something to say, but from Derek Campbell's view, they're still children. And adults should know better. We've got more life experience. So I'm not saying give everything over to young people and let them start ruling the world, because they can't. But we do have a lot to learn from them. We should listen to them, and we should work very closely with them to try and move the agenda forward. Thanks for listening to me.
Our roots. Sometimes I'm glad of being me. Sometimes I'm glad with compassion. Sometimes I get glad with mad. That's why they call me glad made mad. That's why they call me glad made mad.
Wait, there is a dream, there is a vision. In every tunnel, there is a light at the end. Every cloud has a silver lining. So don't fear, every day has a new line. Yes, we dream to reality.
Yes, we dream to reality. Society has got its rules for all of us.
I'm called Helen from Back to My Roots. Gadget, I'm asking a question about mental health and well-being. As a mental health community development worker, you've seen the journey of horror and sorrow communities go through in the times of crisis arising from entry into mental health and criminal justice system. What do you suggest as ways to avoid such scenarios?
Well, there are several ways that you can avoid such scenarios. Several of them are talking to people that you trust, your friends, your families, your relatives, doctors, GPs who can give you medical professional advice. You could write things down, write your feelings down, how you feel on a certain day, build up a diary for yourself on your thoughts, how you're feeling today, tomorrow, something that you can reflect back to that can help you. You could also try to keep healthy. I know it's not always, but try to keep active and healthy, get involved into activities, your hobbies that you like. You probably like swimming, I do. Try to go to the leisure centres over a weekend or something for an hour's swim. Just helps you to kind of direct your attention. Also, try to eat healthy. I mean, it's recommended 5 portions a day of fruit and vegetables. Not many of us get a chance to do that, but it is recommended. Try to do that. Also, you could get information and knowledge about mental health. If you don't have an insight to what mental health is or what are the different types of illnesses, you can go on trainings, you can log on to the NHS website. They have a list of different types of mental health illnesses on there. There's fact sheets on there, self-help guides that can help you through, tips that you can follow. You could also think beyond medication, things like counselling. Counsellors are professional, trained people that can listen to you, provide you with information, signpost you to relevant organisations who could help and support you on a one-to-one basis if needed. You could try to change your environment. A good example, when I'm kind of feeling stressed out on my computer, I just take time out, go to the kitchen, make a cup of tea or a cup of something, and just have that break, just recharges my battery, come back and think again, okay, where do I start, where do I finish? And then try to keep your bad thoughts out, your feelings out. Think positive about the future. Think positive about what you're going to do on your very next day or your very next moment, and try to set realistic goals for yourselves. You could also try to keep in touch with people. I know people have busy lives, but try to keep in touch with your friends, your loved ones. Keep that social network going. Don't lose touch with people. Improve your coping skills. When you know there's a need, when you know there's something isn't right, ask for help. Don't suffer in silence. Don't isolate yourself. Do ask for help for whoever you can trust, friends, families, professionals. Sleep well. It's recommended to sleep 8 hours a day, so try to sleep well as well. That also helps you to just recharges your batteries. Thank you.
Patrick, you're a mental health worker and counsellor. Can you suggest some ways of self-counselling to communities?
You know, I can say as people, we behave unconsciously, we behave subconsciously, and we also behave consciously. Now, in order to manage or counsel ourselves, we have to be conscious of the way we behave. And of course, we should be conscious that times when things happen, bad situations arise, calamities befall us, unwanted happenings come our way one time or the other, or there may be temptations, call it even peer pressure, or urges to behave in an adverse way. There can be losses at times, including grief, sporting defeat, like when you're a football fan and your team loses. There can be family breakdown, say your loved one going to prison, like we've just seen in this program. So all these things happen. Now, when such a things happen, you may be able to help yourself. And as I said, when you're conscious of all these things around yourself, and we call this self-counseling or self-psychotherapy, I would like to note out that, you know, when you go out to meet with a doctor or to meet with a counselor or a psychotherapist or a psychologist or any health profession, you meet with this person for a maximum of an hour, yeah, but the rest of the time, you're by yourself, and you should have self kind of counseling tips on how best to help yourself. That's what we mean by self-counseling or self-help in order to keep with the stresses of life. So when a bad occurrence strikes you, you can try putting your mind on a different kind of stress. So when something strikes and you're kind of affected, and you bring in what we call a positive kind of stress, say like setting another target for yourself at work, or setting a target for you to do at home, or trying to complete some activity with your child or your children. Now, you're kind of setting a different kind of stressor, but which is positive, and that one diverts you from the negative stressors of life. You can say put your mind on something that interests you. Again, this could be a hobby. You go maybe in a film, or you go watch football, or you go in a theater, go dancing. Now, it is putting your mind and looking forward to something that interests you. And it is sometimes helpful to try and picture an image, of an earlier success, something you did better a long time ago. Because at times what happens is when something bad happens, you may feel that that's the end of the world, forgetting that you've accomplished so many other better things before. And of course, also forgetting that there are some other better things in future that you yourself can accomplish. But because of this one event that has happened to you, it strikes you down, puts you off, and you're off balance, really. You can also think philosophically. You can say perhaps sometimes we need defeats in order to appreciate our successes. That note of some kind of philosophical thinking, you can be what we call a philosophical realist by being aware that most love ends in pain, or most good things are bound to end in some kind of pain. What I'm saying is, even if you're happily married for 80 years, if you lived as long as that with your partner, one of you will die first. And that is something that you should be aware of. That's a reality. That's what we call thinking philosophically, but in a realistic way. So where there is a gain, there could be a loss. Where there is a win, there could be a defeat. And remember, anything that will help you to get through a bad situation that you can land on, whether you're going to seek support and help, whether you're going to go for counseling, whether you're going to go to a doctor, whether you're going to go and meet with friends, anything good is always worth to do it, to try it. So when bad situations happen, ask, what can I do to get something good? Where can I get some support? By knowing that there is a way, you're able to help yourself out. And of course, remember to let your social networks, families and friends, know that something has affected you. And let them not belittle your feelings, because at times they may start saying that, that mere football loss, what is it? 11 men chasing the ball and one team loses, something like that. Or just losing that small pain. And yet there is something dear on your side that is attached to that. There is a strong attachment to your feelings in as far as that event or situation is concerned. So tell them, my friend or my brother or my sister or my wife, that thing is very important to me, and please don't belittle it. If anything, you should give me help. You should support me in that bad situation or that loss that I am in. And one other thing which could be very important is try to beat what we call stereotypes. Now, stereotypes are things that are commonly known. For example, they will say, if you're in a bad situation, if you're in a bad moment, if you're grieving, if you're affected by something you don't want, you lose the urge to do things that interest you. You lose the urge to work. You lose the urge to dress smartly. Yes. You lose the urge to look after yourself. You lose the urge to look after your family. You lose the urge, sorry to say this, and sex. And yet, these are things that are very important to you. So try to beat that stereotype and say, yes, I've lost, but I will work. Yes, I've lost, but I will love my partner. Yes, I've lost, but I will take my precious drink, tea or juice, or eat my 5 fruits and veg a day. These are the things you like. So beat that stereotype and say, me, I'm me. I will carry on positive. So those are some of the kind of self-help, self-counseling, self-psychotherapy that will help you move along in your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being part of this forum. I know we have been waiting a long time, in fact centuries. Our ancestors dreamt, waited and kept peeping but never entered. We have entered by a stereotyped, misunderstood, labelled and fighting each other. But I call upon you to make fresh dreams. Let your dreams out of these dreams of these two.
of you here today. Today we celebrate the release of Ngoma from prison, but we celebrate the release of the chained ones in society. We celebrate that prison, crime and gutters will not follow us like flies, following dead bodies. Instead, wash your hands to eat with kings and queens. In fact, put your heads high for crowning. Brush your teeth for killer smiles that will expose them. Light your faces to appear on cover pages. And I, Ngoma, start a fresh, focused life as we stand in this sacred, exclusive house that long ago could not be. Thank you, and may God bless you.
If you wish to ask anything regarding this toolkit, contact South Birmingham Community Development Team on 07826 85 8987 or Back to My Roots Community Group on 07979 02 5362.